So in this episode of today's podcast, we are going to talk about all things scratching at weddings, leveling up your performance so that the client experience that you have at every single private event that you DJ at is phenomenal. And so, Rev, I'm going to ask you, should you scratch at a wedding? Should you level up your performance at private events, or what? Like, what do you feel?
I'm going to say you should. But it's something you got to practice a lot, put a lot of hours into it and make it sound clean. I'm not even going to say sound good. It needs to sound clean, crispy.
What does that mean? What does clean mean to you?
So whatever scratch technique you're doing, normally there's edges of the sound of like what you're doing. You just want to tighten it up and get it on beat to where it sounds like it's part of the song. You don't want to override the song that's playing. You just want to add in a little flavor,
Yeah, so you're not saying like we need to perform a 3-style competition style of routine at a wedding, but we are saying that like the wedding could use some flair, dude. Like what is so amazing to me, we were just talking before we started this episode, is that there are some lazy DJs out there, man, that they think that you shouldn't have to mix like that at a wedding or cut up anything or add anything to it. And dude, I kind of went on a little rant, I just don't agree. I mean, as a business owner, I want our experience to be a cut above everybody else. And if you just want to blend in, then that's fine. Yeah. But if you want to set yourself apart and provide, most of all, provide the client the experience that they're looking for.
Yep.
I just think you have to level that part up about your performance, man.
I think the typical excuse that every DJ uses is like, oh, the crowd doesn't want to hear that. Like, you don't have to do that. They're not going to know any. It's like, yeah, that's true. You can just mix super clean and have a successful wedding. But I've had so many times where I'm DJing a wedding and I'll do a little cut and everyone looks and some guy will walk over and be like, dude, that was dope. Like, do more of that. And I'm like, yeah.
And they flip out.
Yeah.
And you're not, again, I've been there when you do that stuff. And it's like, it's not a showboat thing. It's not a watch me thing. It's you're feeling that rhythm. You cut it and the place goes crazy, dude.
Yeah.
It's just, I don't know, man.
It's kind of like any musician, if they're up on stage and they're just strumming a guitar. No, you want to see that solo go off, like those big moments. That's like, oh, he's doing something sick. Like DJing is the same thing. And it also gives you something to do so you're not just bored out of your mind, like waiting 2 minutes to like mix your next intro and like you already got everything queued up and you just stand there. Yeah. Like you can actually have some fun and like throw a little.
I haven't thought about it that way, but you're so right. Yeah. You're so right. And man, you and I talk quite often about just the amount of leads that we get in and amount of planners and vendor relationships that we've formed over the last couple of years. And I would say, man, there's a massive uptick right now of people that will specifically say this kind of stuff. They'll send us, a request for a private event DJ, and they'll say, really looking for a DJ who can mix, who is good on the microphone, and who can interact with the crowd and have a good time. We're all looking for this, that sometimes they'll even say stuff like, we're looking for that club vibe. Dude, the amount of people that are coming into our environment that are looking for that kind of stuff is just, it continues to go up. It's blowing my mind, honestly, man. I mean, I got one just this morning before we started recording. And so like for me, I'm trying to help newer DJs that are breaking into this space, so that want to create a private events company. That, man, if this part of your packaging can be, hey, we mix, we cut, we do this, and you can offer that experience to your client, I mean, you're only going to win. And in my opinion, those who are not doing that are going to be irrelevant and aren't going to be able to charge the pricing that they really need to charge in order for their business to grow. I mean, that's That's just a fact.
Yeah. And there's kind of a stigma out right now that wedding DJs are cheesy, you know, like a lot of brides, I think, maybe are weary about booking a DJ because they don't want this cheesy guy
Right.
at their wedding. And they've probably experienced that before. And that's why they're sending you those messages like, hey, we want a DJ that's like on point and actually does some cool stuff.
Right.
So that's just going to be more of the trend. And
Yeah.
because people see it on Instagram and social media, like
Right.
these DJs actually doing stuff, and they're like, I want that at my wedding.
Yeah.
And it takes a very high caliber DJ to pull that off.
Yeah. You know, I just think the times are changing, man. I mean, I just think we've talked about this over and over and over, and we'll continue to do so as you know, people interact with us on this podcast. But it is so crucial that your upfront performance is good.
Yeah.
And you know, I teach an MC class often, and if people are interested in that, they can hit our description and go grab that. It's just called the MC Confidence Guide. And I think the biggest piece to that confidence guide, dude, is like being good at what you do. So you have to practice,
Yeah.
you know, being a good MC and being a good, you know, mix DJ. But the bigger thing is, and we coach our people here, is be brief, be bright,
Yeah.
be fun, and be done.
Yeah.
like you only have to say what you need to say on the microphone. Make sure that the EQ is right and it's
Yeah.
bright and everybody can hear it. Be fun. Like, don't be a Debbie Downer, you know, like
Yeah.
bring up the crowd and then be done and get back to what you were hired to do. And that is play some great
Yeah.
music, you know? And, you know, I just think you're right. People have experienced the opposite of that. And and they're looking for a different type of experience. But you have a lot of good tools. You teach our team, you teach me on a regular basis these different ideas in just the art of DJing. And so I wanted to have you talk about some of those things that you're most passionate about of newer DJs, you know, being able to know. I think one of those being phrasing. And if you want to add some more things to that, then go right ahead. But talk through phrasing. What does that mean? And kind of your philosophy.
When you're first starting out, you're learning beat matching and putting two songs together at the same beats per minute. You know, that's pretty basic. One thing that people struggle with, and I hear it out all the time when I hear other DJs, is the correct phrasing of the music, which means the song structure. You know, when they record an artist, normally there'll be a verse and then a chorus and another verse. However it goes, each song is different.
Yeah.
So when you're mixing two songs together, if you don't do it right, you're going to end up with a verse coming in the middle of a chorus of another song, and it clashes really bad.
So it's kind of messy.
You never want to have vocals on top of vocals of two songs. People are just going to be like, what is going on?
It's too much. Yeah.
To avoid that, you really have to know your music structure. And typically, if you download these songs that are made specifically for DJs with intro, outro edits,
Right.
it'll be like a 16 or 32 beat intro. And typically a chorus on a song is 16 or 32 beats. So I always put my first cue point at the very first downbeat of the song.
Okay.
Like that's where I start. And then I count 16 beats in and put another cue point. So if I'm like distracted and someone's talking to me or something's going on and I'm listening to this song that's playing and I get to the chorus, we get halfway through the chorus, I know I can hit that second cue point, jump halfway through the intro, and typically it lines up. And I'm always using headphones just to listen to make sure I never get vocals just on top of vocals. And yeah.
So then what do you do? What do you do to kind of course correct if you do end up getting vocal? What's the technique to get out of that?
I'll normally click like a 1 beat loop.
Okay.
And filter up on that song that's going out.
Okay.
So it'll almost sound like an echo effect, but you're doing a 1 beat loop and you filter it up into that higher frequency. So it kind of just smooths it out and then you fade down as you're filtering.
I think that's that emergency tip that
Yeah.
everybody needs.
And you can use an echo, like set your echo to one beat and just hit whatever, trigger it, and then fade it out, and it'll do that one beat. Like that's pretty standard.
Yeah.
A one beat echo.
Yeah, there's some. I mean, there are some transitions that even DJs that are new but are looking to kind of take it to the next level. Man, I mean, just the effect out is so awesome. Like
one
that big
thing
reverb or big, like,
you want to avoid very abrupt changes in your mixing. So if you just like cut out a song, it's very noticeable to everybody out there that like that whole element just disappeared.
Gone.
Yeah.
Right.
But if you can it's called like leaving tails. If you do an echo and it fades out gradually, you're leaving that little tail that leads into the next song, or a reverb leads tails, and like it's a whole thing. But
yeah. Well, I love that kind of stuff because I'm an electric guitar player.
Yeah.
For a long time, and I love effects, and I love like that piece of the music, and so it's always fun to me to try to figure out like what effect I'm going to use. And I'll be honest, like I got into this rut earlier last year, just this like echo out, filter out, let it ring, come into the next thing.
Yeah.
And but so let's break that down a little bit. So we've talked phrasing. What are some transitions that you're thinking about, maybe 2 or 3 steps ahead, or what are some transitions that you like
back
to do?
on phrasing for a second? You really need to make it where people don't notice a song transition. So basically, when you get to that chorus of the song, you're mixing the next song in, and right when the chorus is ending of the first song, you're into the next verse, and it just musically makes sense, like every time.
Okay.
You don't want to mess that up. I mean, it's easy it just comes down to knowing your music really well and understanding the structure of the beats and all that. But that's what I really want to dial in on, because I'll hear DJs out and it'll be the middle of the chorus, and then they do an echo or a fade and it goes into something else. And it's like, well, there was still a lot left in that song that people know, and it just loses that groove.
Yeah. Can you talk about just even like knowing your music, but then cue points inside of that too? Yeah. I think I'm when I first started learning a lot of hip hop.
Yeah.
I would leave certain parts of the song out, and the crowd would be like, "What's up? What happened to the rap? What happened to that part?" Yeah. And I've slowly, learned all that stuff and hit cue points around that. But can you like speak to that a little bit? Just how you're cue pointing your music? Yeah.
So kind of a big thing, especially in hip hop music, is there might be a feature later in the song,
right,
that's a rapper hops on with like this sick verse, and maybe you don't want to let the song play for 2.5 minutes to get to that part. Like, let's say it's a Drake verse,
right?
Whatever. So let's say he comes in after the chorus. Well, you could put a cue point at the start of that chorus, which might be the second chorus in the song. So whenever you mix the song in and you get to the first chorus, you just hit that cue point and it brings the chorus up.
Oh, yeah.
So then it sounds like the same song, but you're cutting out all this garbage in the middle. It's not garbage, sorry.
We're not hating
stuff
on you,
that
Drake.
People don't care about. And then you go right into that Drake verse, and then you have your next song ready to go. So after that verse, you're into next whatever. And you, like Nick Spinelli's been harping on this real big, is just playing the parts of songs that people want to hear and cut out all the rest.
Yeah.
Because people are so like ADD, if you want to say that, where they just want to, and that's what's going to set you apart as a DJ. If you're quick mixing, we talk about that a lot, but I've been using short edits. So if you get on like Direct Music Service has a lot of good ones, and these DJs will edit the song down to like a minute, and you got your intro, and then it goes to the verse, and then it's like the part that someone wants to hear, chorus out. Like, it's super fast and clean. Yeah. And I think that's a big cheat code for mixing,
Oh, that short edit is a cheat code.
Yeah.
Man. Like, that's a such a value bomb.
Yeah.
And people you don't know that unless you have subscriptions to those
And
services.
I never used to use short edits. I was not exposed to it until I got on direct music service. For some reason, I don't notice a lot of short edits on DJ City, which is the other one I use. So I kind of just go in both fields. And it's normally some of those older songs, you know, like Hollaback Girl or Spice Girls, some of that stuff where
it's
there's
super
very
long.
particular parts of the song that people sing and know.
Yep.
And if you can cut all that down and then get out of the song, like that's the best way to do it.
Yep. Yeah, there's that, you know, that Black Eyed Peas tune, that Fergalicious, or that's more Fergie, I guess, but she's got that too. Like that song has so many drops that the ladies go crazy over.
Yeah.
But if you miss one, dude, you better look out. Like
I had one recently. It was that, like, I think Fergie song, and I played it and I quick mixed out before it got to that part where she's like, Fergalicious, that Fergalicious, whatever. And they were like, "Hey, go back, and we want to hear that rap part." And I was like, and I just played it again. Like, I don't care. Like, I'll play the song again.
We'll just come on back to it.
Yeah,
yeah, I know. It's that No Hands is kind of that way. People want to hear a certain part or whatever. Or if you cut the rap out of, people, they don't like that. Especially now, that Super Bowl drop is going to be.
I played "Yeah" by Usher last night, and I specifically let it ride through the Ludacris verse because he was on stage, you know. And yeah,
it's the thing. You got to do it. Well, so phrasing, cue points are super important. Effects are super important. Short edits. I think you've covered a lot of that, and so I think that'll help a lot of younger DJs or even DJs have been in the game for a long time where they're getting a little crusty, like gotta spice it up.
And sometimes there might be a song. This is something you should do is maybe it's like a vocal that comes in, like, for example, Jay-Z, when he's like, "Allow me to reintroduce myself. My name is Ho," and you drop it on that vocal. You have to know the timing to where it comes in on the right downbeat, and that's kind of tricky too. A lot of those hip hop songs start with like some weird vocal that might be 2 beats and you got to cut it the right way.
Yeah.
And that's just a next level thing that you get with the music timing.
Yeah. That phrasing on that song is difficult.
Yeah.
You got to work it. You definitely got to work it. I just remember going back to your, don't cross over verses. I remember my first, venture into putting myself out there as a DJ that would mix on social media. And I've got this little piece of routine that I do. And I was dropping in and it's everything that's in this like 101 to 105 piece. And I did that. I overlapped some vocals. Yeah. And man, I got some hate. People were like, "What are you doing, dude? Like cut that part out." So it's been a front of mind for the last couple of years of like, don't mix that stuff up.
Well, you just have to know when the vocals are coming in, and you can always re-trigger that cue point and bring it back where it's just the drums.
Yeah.
Like if you see, I'll watch the waveforms, and normally vocals are like a greenish bright color. If you see that coming up, you're like, "Oh, I need to loop it back one more time to wait for the chorus or whatever to end, and then make sure those vocals come in the right time."
Yeah. Can you talk about looping? Because I see you do that a lot. I'm starting to do that a little bit more, but just how would you set up your controller in general to be able to hit those loops? Are you typically doing a 1 beat loop most of the time, and you're just going to set it like that?
So I kind of do it old school, where I use an auto loop, but on the actual keyboard.
Okay.
And you can still do auto loops on the controller, and you can set on Serato, it'll say you want a 1 beat, 2 beat, 4 beat, all the way up, like I think 16 or 32. And you can go all the way down to like a 1/32, which is just like
that James Hype kind of stuff. Yeah.
So normally there'll be a section on your mixer or controller that's for looping, and a little knob where you can select that length, if you want 1 beat, 2 beat, and then you just hit the auto loop, it'll probably say auto loop or loop. Some guys will do it manually. The old way to do it is there'll be an in and an out point.
Mhm.
So wherever you want your loop to start, you would hit in, and then when you get to the last part, you hit out, and it would just loop that
Keep
section.
going.
Yeah.
Yeah. Yeah. I mean, on my, like on the Rev 7 that we use, we've got it, you know, you can just see it right there. It's going to be half or 1 or 4 or whatever. But you're saying it's probably better to program an auto loop and to tell Serato,
Yep.
I want to hit this button, and that way you're not having to look and change the timing. I noticed for me, I manually do it. Da-da-da-da,
Anytime
which is like
I
finger
set a
dancing,
loop,
you know?
and so earlier on in my DJ career, I might set an 8-beat loop
Yeah,
at the beginning of a song to use that to mix it in.
yeah.
You know,
I do. I use,
before we had these intro outro edits, that was a common practice. Now, the only time I use a loop is I've already mixed the next song in. I'm trying to get out of this other song, and I'll just hit a 1-beat loop, and it normally catches like a vocal.
Mhm.
Do that filter up and fade down, and then you're right into the next song. I mean, some DJs do a way too much with loops, and it kind of overpowers the mix.
Yeah.
And the James hype thing is cool, you know. If you do that too much, you're gonna turn people off.
Yeah,
Yeah.
yeah. I think you can get away with that a lot more in EDM and
Yeah.
dance music, you know, versus hip hop, unless it's like a cool phrase where it's like,
Yeah.
but you only want to use that a couple of times throughout the night. Like,
Yeah.
people don't need to be like, bro, this guy.
Yeah. Like if every mix, if you're hitting like a quarter beat loop
Yeah.
and then dialing it down into like 1/32, it's like ding, 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 ding. Like people are gonna get so sick of
They
that.
get sick
And
of
it's
it.
cool. Like I'm not hating. Like
No.
do it. I think it sounds good, but do it right. And
Yeah.
like every mix technique needs to be used sparingly.
Dude, you just got back from Mardi Gras in New Orleans.
Yeah.
You went down there. You were anticipating this, you know, fun experience, but I wanted you to talk about it.
I mean, I was anticipating just madness and
Yeah.
chaos, and that's what it was. Like, I thought it was awesome that that tradition lives on so strong in the city, and those people absolutely love it and like look forward to it every year. But man, I don't see how they deal with that amount of people coming in like for a
so
whole.
you were set to DJ a couple of nights.
Yeah.
And you did.
Yeah.
And what was the experience like?
So honestly, people would come into the bar and scope everything out. They might grab a drink real quick, and then they wanted to be back out in the street.
Yeah.
That's kind of where all the action was. Like
Right.
I was on Bourbon Street
Yeah.
specifically.
Okay.
So we would look out like a balcony and the streets would just be packed and everyone's out there dancing and doing crazy stuff. You know what happens.
It's
And then the
crazy.
bar would kind of just be chill and like people are doing whatever and they might dance a little bit. And then, yeah, that's
Yeah.
kind of how it was.
And so it was just for you, if you were really looking to hype that crowd up, you'd have been set up outside, but you weren't.
Yeah. And that's the thing down there is a lot of the bars are pumping music out into the street. So there's not a big reason for them to come into the bar and spend money that they don't want to spend. Like
Right.
they'll just walk around out there and hear all this different music and kind of party. And you can take your drinks outside and just walk around.
That's what's so crazy about Mardi Gras, man. It's just like
Yeah.
no rules.
Yeah.
Dude, it's wild. you were telling me that you were like, you had to lug your gear
Yeah.
a ways and like, man, not the same experience as we have here when we're doing private
like
events.
it's a struggle to find parking here on Dixon Street, and I will take that a million times over what it was like down there to try and park or load gear into anywhere. Like it I don't see how DJs down there do it.
Yeah.
You'd have to leave your equipment maybe at the bar.
Yeah. Dude, that's crazy, man.
But I'm glad to be back.
glad you made it.
Yeah.
I'm glad you made it. Bro, let's do a little tech section here. You sent me a video of some sort of crazy drop during the Super Bowl.
Yeah.
Rain's coming out with something, man. Like,
Yeah.
what are we?
I don't know the
how are we
details.
feeling?
Everyone's talking about it. I know Nick Spinelli. I'm going to keep talking about Nick, but he's always the
Shout out
first
Nick
one
Spinelli.
to hop on.
I don't know how he gets all this info. So
people
fast.
send him stuff and then he just goes live.
I know.
And so
He has an advantage.
it was this very low resolution Instagram video of a DJ playing at the Super Bowl, but it was like a pre-party
Yeah.
or maybe an after party.
Skins on and everything. I
Yeah.
could tell.
And you see this Rane controller with 4 channels and motorized platters, which is kind of crazy.
Ooh, it's crazy, man.
And then there was a second video, actually Mojax did too, where Super Bowl released these big wide photos of the stage that Usher was on. And you could zoom in. It was like pretty high resolution camera. And over by like these drums in the corner, you saw that same Rane kind of controller that the DJ was using in that performance. And then I think people did a little bit of sleuthing and they found out who the DJ was, went to his story, and there's a story of him like on the stage. I don't know if I think it might have been after the performance. And he kind of scans his camera and gives you like a full view.
Yeah, because he's like, Rain, we out here.
Yeah.
You know, I'm
Yeah.
like, dude, who is this insider?
I don't
that
know.
No one knows about.
Yeah, he might be
And I forgive me if I don't
official
know.
Usher
Like,
DJ
yeah,
or something.
I mean, maybe.
But I think him and his brother programmed that whole performance for the Super Bowl. Like that's what his story said.
Dang.
And so he somehow got access to this new Rane. Maybe he's a Rane fanboy, you
dude,
know.
But
But
Rane,
it's
where
a
you at?
4-channel motorized platter controller, and it's got the name Performer on it, which is different.
And you were telling me that, like, you know, you can program fader 1, fader 2 to be like stem activated.
Yeah, I think that might be a feature that they released previously.
Okay.
But
on their Rane 4. Yeah, I think you're right.
The advantage of having those 4 channels, most DJs aren't going to be playing 4 songs at one time, but you can use 2 faders to control channel 1 basically. And 1 fader controls the vocal, 1 fader controls the instrumental part.
Yeah.
So instead of messing with pads and different, you know, hot cue, those things, and going into stems, you just throw a fader down and it's just the vocals. Like it's super quick and you can just leave it like that. I guess I've never used it, but I'm assuming.
Well, man, I hope that in the next couple of months, Rane comes out with that like full force, because there are some things that I started on a Rane 1 when I went kind of motorized platters that I love about it. I wish it had built-in effects, or I'd still be using it, to be honest with you, because I switched to Rev 7 just for that simple thing, that during the events that we do, it's just onboard effects are just everything. Like I slept on that, and you helped me see the light, but I just don't, it doesn't feel as real to me as the Rane 1. And I know Rane is just, you know, they're the industry standard when it comes to.
Rane has always been known for building beefy tank, you know, quality equipment, like full metal, everything. And I think it's great. I used Rane mixers when I started. I had like a TTM 56, TTM 57. That was the first Rane mixer that had Serato. It was Scratch Live built into it, so you could just plug USB straight in. That was a phenomenal mixer that every DJ used for years and years.
Yeah.
And then when the S9 came out, that was the first mixer that DJs flipped out because it had those big rubber hot cue
pads on it. Yeah.
So everybody went Pioneer. Rane kind of got left. They tried to do some other like 62 mixer that had bigger squares, but it was not like even
it wasn't
close.
S9, S11. Yeah.
And so then when they released like the Rane 1, that had the bigger pads and they kind of stepped it up. And then Pioneer answered with the Rev 7 and all that.
Yeah. And like I'm big on technology, but I'm just hopeful for Rane to come through and you know, I like Pioneer. We have a lot of Pioneer gear, but
Yeah.
you know, all in all, it'd just be awesome.
Yeah.
To see them to battle it out. I feel like they'll just keep leveling DJs up, which is super cool. You know, I love that. But
Yep.
you know, it's like anything. Everything it just the evolution and the technology, it's hard to keep up these days. It's like,
Yeah.
dang, man, like what when you learn one thing, some other cat comes out with something else and you're just like, dang, man, I just perfected this thing. And now, like, what has you excited about like DJ technology right now?
One thing that I'll give props to Pioneer for is that new turntable that they put out, the Cross
I was gonna
12.
see like what your thoughts were on that.
I haven't used one, but I'm currently using like a Technique turntable with Phase, which is the little Bluetooth remote that you put on the record. And that has been good. Sometimes it just quits on me.
Yeah.
And I have to unplug the USB from the hub and plug it back in. And it takes like 20 seconds. And if I'm in the middle of doing something, like it's not cool.
No.
And it irritates me. But that new Pioneer turntable, they've developed some magnetic clip that goes on top and kind of clamps the record down, and it senses where the record's playing, and you can scratch and do everything, and it sends it to your laptop. I don't know how it works.
Like
it's like
magic,
alien
man.
stuff.
It is like
But
alien stuff.
those are expensive turntables, and that's why I don't want to pull the trigger on it yet. I'm going to stick with my techniques and let the Phase figure it out.